Hello and welcome. I'm Diane Okonski, your host for today's program. We are talking with the team at the Icelandic Emigration Center, Vesturfarasetrið in Hofsos, Iceland. Joining us are Mallory Swanson, manager of the Emigration Center, and this year's Snorri alumni interns, Maddy Garneau from Canada and David Johnson from the United States. Before we get started, I want to thank the INLUS members and contributors for their donations that make these webinars, our Icelandic classes, scholarships, and grants possible. If you are not yet a member of the INLUS, please check us out and consider joining us. We'd love to have you. Information can be found at www.inlus.org. For today's program, we encourage you to submit your questions using Zoom's Q&A feature, and we'll answer as many as possible throughout the program. Today's program is being recorded and will be available on the INLUS website and YouTube channel. Today, we will also be mentioning some terms like Snorri, Snorri Plus, Snorri Alumni Intern and Internship, which may be unfamiliar to you. For more information about the suite of Snorri programs, please visit the Snorri website at www.snorri.is. Okay, so let's get started. Mallory, David, Maddy, welcome. I'm going to ask each one of you to introduce yourselves. So Mallory, we'll start with you. You have been part of the museum staff now for quite a while. And as you introduce yourself, can you tell us what makes Hofsos and the museum so special to you?
Yeah, I'm Mallory Swanson. I first came to Hofsos in 2011 when I was a Snorri, and I did the program that summer. And as is tradition with the Snorri program, one of the last days of the adventure tour brings us to Hofsos. So I had a brief introduction then, and then in 2016, I was lucky enough to be the Snorri alumni internship for the US side. So I spent time here at that point, and then every summer after I came back and volunteered here until 2020 when I moved to Iceland. And in 2022, I began full-time work here at the museum as a manager. Hofsos it's not only physically a beautiful place, but I don't know, it provides like a completely different lifestyle than I had ever been used to before. So the access to nature and animals, and my horses that I have out in the field, I have two horses, are a huge part of what I love about Hofsos. I love getting to greet the guests that come into the museum where we work. And yeah, I mean, I think it's a great place to be.
Okay, thank you. And so Maddy, tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to apply to work at the Emigration Center.
Yeah, so I'm Maddy. I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I'm working with David at the center, volunteering with the Snorri Programs. So I went with the Snorri program last year and had an amazing time. I honestly thought when I first applied to the Snorri program that that'd be my one and only time to Iceland and I would be done with it, but it just drew me in and I wanted to come back. So I saw the internship opportunity and thought it'd be a great way to spend my summer. And as working as a nurse back home, I'm able to have some flexibility to come out here and do that. And that was kind of one of the reasons that inspired me, is I thought that since I'm young and have this flexibility with my job, now's the time to come out and do that. And I wanted to do some traveling during university, but unfortunately COVID kind of interrupted those plans. So I thought now was the time to travel and do everything that I missed out on. And it's been a really good opportunity because I love waking up every day and seeing the ocean. That was very appealing, just all the nature and getting in touch with my roots.
Marvelous, marvelous. So David, you participated in the Snorri Plus program while Mallory and Maddy participated in Snorri. So as you tell us about yourself, can you tell us what drew you to the Snorri Alumni Internship Program?
Thanks, Diane. So I'm David Johnson, and I grew up in Oregon and spent 25 years in Seattle, and now I live in Indianapolis. And I'm retired. So now I have the perfect opportunity, to just be free. And being in Hofsos is really energizing. Like everybody said so far, it's just such a beautiful place. I really have always loved genealogy work. Since I was 15 years old, I was active in, looking for ancestors and putting things on forms. And we get so many wonderful people come through here on a daily basis. Um, Even if they don't have that Icelandic connection, they are just the most warm, wonderful people to talk to. And I've kind of given up trying to structure my day here and just let who comes through the door drive my level of happiness for the day. And every day there's somebody great walking through the door. So I completed the Snorri Plus program way back in 2011. And yeah, what is this? 13 years later, I'm finally taking advantage of this Snorri internship program that I've heard about for years. It's great.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, all three of you. I appreciate your telling us a little bit about yourself. And so, Mallory, some of us may not quite know where Hofsos is. So can you kind of give us an orientation and then kind of a thumbnail sketch about what Hofsos is like and why the Emigration Center was built there?
Sure. So Hofsos is a town in I think it's considered northwest, but it's almost kind of central North Iceland, about 4.5 hours drive from Reykjavik. It's a town of about 180 full-time residents, and then slightly more that have summer homes here. And so the town will get a little bit bigger in the summertime. And then when you add in the fact that there's like a campsite and several guest houses, the town in the summer stays significantly busier than it does in the winter. There's a school here that provides the kids with their like compulsory education. So that goes from the preschool level up to through grade 10. And that keeps the town lively. Like I think Hofsos is really lucky to still have a school here, and one that's really thriving. There is a pool in town that's a huge draw for people. It's been voted one of the best pools in Iceland, I think, many, many years. It has a beautiful view, like an infinity style view over the fjord. So we get a lot of people that are coming through to the pool, and then they'll be wandering around the town and they'll find the museum and kind of go, oh, what is this? And enjoy having a good view of a really important part of the history of Iceland with all of the immigrants leaving for North America and a few to Brazil. I think that some people miss coming to Hofsos when they're doing their trip around Iceland because it is a little bit off of the ring road. It's off of kind of main highway #1 by about 30 to 40 minutes. So yeah, some people might accidentally skip it, and I think they're missing out if they do. The reason that the Immigration Center is here in Hofsos is because a man named Valgeir Thorvaldsson, who was born and raised in this area, he had this, I guess, idea and this image of a place where people could come together, both descendants of immigrating Icelanders and current Icelanders living here today, would have a place to meet and to reunite in some cases when family connections had been lost. And so in the early to mid 90s, I think is when this idea first started to form. And the town of Hofsos was kind of it wasn't thriving. There was a lot of empty buildings down in the harbor area. The fishing industry had kind of died down here a bit. And so there just wasn't much that brought people here. The swimming pool wasn't here at that time. And so he began fixing up some of these old buildings in the old harbor area. And one by one, they opened. So in 1996, it was the opening of the center. And I mean, I guess the rest is history, that we just celebrated the 28th anniversary of the center. Maddy and David and I, along with Valgeir and his wife Gunna, who run the place, had a pizza dinner at the restaurant in town to celebrate the 28th anniversary a few weeks ago. So yeah, I guess that's why it's here and where we are.
Perfect, thank you. So David, what does the Emigration Center offer to visitors? And can you tell us a little bit about the visitors that come to the museum?
Certainly. The exhibits for the museum are housed in 3 different buildings, and all 3 try to tell the story of why about 18,000 Icelanders decided to leave this beautiful land for lands unknown, to North America mostly, but as somebody mentioned, a few to Brazil. It's a really great exhibit. In one house, it really tells the overarching story of why they left: famine, religious reasons, land opportunities were greater there than they were here. And then the other house is just a collection of photographs from a man named Nelson Gerard, who lives currently in Manitoba. He was an inspiration to me when I came here in 2011 because he opened up some doors to my own family story that I didn't know about. So I feel like I'm kind of giving back that to the visitors here today. But what he did, he collected all these old family photographs of Icelandic families in Canada mostly. Many of them were just being thrown out from the attic into the trash because people didn't know who they were anymore. And he spent many years of his life putting together this wonderful exhibit called Silent Flashes. And it's just collections of old photographs with just a short biography about each of the people in the pictures. So it's a lot lighter read than the other one. And then we've got one more house that's over the river across a little footbridge, and it tells the story of the settlements of North Dakota. We always hear about the big Manitoba settlements and the people that went out west, but the little 12 or so kind of rural towns in North Dakota that are or were full of Icelanders still are full of descendants of Icelanders, and they still carry a lot of pride in their communities. In fact, if you're going to be up that way, they're celebrating the 125th anniversary of a festival called the August the Deuce. And August 2nd kind of has historical meaning in Iceland, and I won't get into that, but the Icelandic culture in North Dakota is still thriving, which is pretty amazing 140 years after it started to get settled.
Okay, so if someone comes to the museum who's not an Icelander, has no Icelandic blood, what can they take away from the Emigration Center? What can they learn?
Well, it's really interesting. Those are the people that I find the most interesting to talk to. We do have, I would say 85% of the visitors are mainland European, Australian. They have nothing to do with Icelandic descent. They're not American or Canadian. And they come out of the first house where the overview is, and they're very moved by the sad stories, the success stories. And they say in their own countries, they had migrations of people for the same kinds of reasons, but they don't have a community house where that story gets told like we do here. So they feel from their hearts the same empathy towards their people that they learn about here. They just don't have a place to celebrate that and acknowledge that in their home country. I met an amazing family of 4 that was here from France. They were on a 30-foot sailboat that was tied out in the harbor, and they had been on the ocean since March when they were here last week. And, you know, that's just one example of the kinds of visitors we get. And they were so touched, and they were just waving as they pulled out of harbor that night as we stood, you know, on the porch of the museum. So, you know, just all kinds of warm moments from people all over the world.
Oh, very, very special, very special. So Maddy, what does the Snorri alumni intern do at the Emigration Center? Give us a picture of your day. And now that you've been there for a while, what's your favorite exhibit?
Yeah, so typical days, we start out at 11 a.m. and get everything started and going at each of the houses. So we all kind of split up and decide which house we want to go to. My favorite is usually the gift shop because I like doing the flag raising and lowering, and you get to look at all the souvenirs that people buy. So I think it's really interesting to see what people like. I find most people like the wool kind of knitted mitts and everything because they want some authentic Icelandic knitted materials. So we sell some tickets, and then there's some people that just come across the museum and don't know what it's about. So I give a very quick overview of the museum to try and reel them in to get some tickets and get them to learn about the history. And then I've been learning a little bit from David, our expert in the genealogy, and Mallory, how to do some of the family history for people that come in. So that's been interesting. I was able to do one for an Icelandic family that didn't know anything about Icelandic roots, and they thought it was very interesting to see the in-depth history of their ancestors, because I think on the Icelandic book it's very small and they don't have as much detail. And yeah, so that's the day-to-day. And then my favorite exhibit is probably the Brazil exhibit that's present in the main house, just because I knew nothing about that, didn't know that anyone even went to Brazil, and I thought that was a very interesting story, and that we don't really know a lot about these people that left, so the mystery behind it is definitely intriguing.
Okay. And in a town of about, 180, how do you spend your downtime?
So I spend a lot of my downtime doing lots of walks and swimming at the amazing pool. I've been buying punch cards to that place and doing lots of laps and just sitting in the hot tub. And I've been going to the restaurant sometimes, and they have really good food there. I was actually quite shocked. Lots of people were talking up the food and didn't know how it would be, but it was very good. And yeah, just enjoying being in the small town life and the serene Icelandic scenery outside my window is amazing.
Well, I can vouch for the pool. It is gorgeous. And they also have really good ice cream. So got to hit up the ice cream shops when you're in Iceland. So David, the Snorri alumni internship is a pretty big commitment. It's 3 months of packing up your house and living in Hofsos. What is it like living in Hofsos for 3 months?
Well, I have to say, having grown up in Portland, Oregon, living in Seattle, Washington, and now in the 15th largest city in all of the United States, Indianapolis, it's really an adjustment to find yourself in quiet 180 population Hofsos. The next nearest town of any size is a 40-minute drive to Söderkrókur, which is only 2,500 people. My life revolves around when the grocery store that's here is open. It's not like there are 24/7 groceries here. It's kind of like a half grocery store. It's attached to a gas station. And so typically, you've got your hot dogs and your Doritos and all that stuff, but they really do have an amazing selection of, nice meats. Dairy stuff is amazing. So I go up there 2 or 3 times a week just to get my several quarts of milk replenished. Life here is quiet. It's beautiful. And I'm learning to let go of my to-do lists. I feel like I used to get value in doing things, and there's nothing to do here. Maddy's listed it all. You can go to the pool or you can go for walks. When those are done, there's nothing to do but absorb the beauty and just be still. And so being still with the view of the ocean, the birds making noises, it takes a little bit of an adjustment. So 3 months is a commitment, and you just have to be prepared with what you're getting into.
Okay.
The mindset has to adjust.
Yeah, absolutely. So Maddy, you are staying in a house called Grimsness, which was the home of author Bill Home. What's it like to live there? I've seen that house, and it's shall I say modest, if not small. So tell me about what it's like to live there.
I think the first thing I thought I watched like a PBS documentary about the home before I came, and the house looks the exact same as in the documentary. So that was really weird walking into a house that I had seen on TV, and I felt like I kind of knew it already a little bit because it is so small. I think the entire snapshot of him in the house like shows the entire house because it's very tiny. It definitely does for the summer, and the windows are amazing. I think he did like a poem about the windows of Brimness, and that was on the PBS documentary. So definitely stands up to the hype that he created before I came, and very close distance to the museums. That's very nice. It's like maybe a 30-second walk. And yeah, it's just nice to kind of have minimal distractions too. Like there's no TV here for a reason, and you kind of get a step away from the busyness and realities of where I'm from.
And it looks like the bookshelves are stocked with books if you fancy reading.
Yeah, definitely. There's lots of books in case you get bored.
All right. So Mallory, what happens? We've gotten a question. What happens at the Iceland Immigration Center during the off season? Is the center open all year round?
So in the summertime, we're open June, July, and August every single day from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. But any other time of the year, essentially, we're available by appointment. So if someone knows that they're going to be coming through Hofsos, I will sometimes get emails from people a week ahead or 6 months ahead, sometimes saying, hey, we're going to be in Hofsos in October. It'll be one of these dates. We're not sure yet. Or we know it'll be at noon on the 22nd or whatever. And so we can just make an appointment and make ourselves available to open up the museum. Monday through Friday, Falker and Gunnar and myself are at the museum anyway, answering emails and doing little projects and things during the off season. So it's not difficult to open up the houses if there's a group coming through, or even just one or two people.
Okay, great. Now, as I said, Mallory and Maddy were part of the Snorri program, and David was part of the Snorri Plus program. Can someone kind of expand on what the Snorri program is and what the Snorri Plus program is? So Mallory, do you want to take that one?
I can do that. So the Snorri program started 25 years ago. This is the 25th year that the program has existed. And it was originally just Snorri, and it was for young people of Icelandic descent who grew up in North America to come to Iceland for 6 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks. The program has kind of changed a little bit in the last few years, and come and explore their heritage, or that part of their Icelandic heritage at least. And so the first week and a half to 2 weeks is spent in the capital, and that is learning a little bit of the Icelandic language, going to some culture and economic lectures, learning about Iceland, doing a little bit of touring in and around Reykjavik. And then for the next 2 weeks, all of the participants are sent out around Iceland. It can kind of vary where the location is, but they're sent to live with Icelandic cousins around Iceland and have their own individual experience doing that. And then for the last week of the program, everyone comes back together and there's an adventure tour. So for anyone who has, even a little bit of Icelandic heritage, it can be an 8th or a 16th or, any amount of Icelandic heritage. If you grew up in North America, the program is for you. And the ages are roughly, 20 to 30 years old for the Snorri program, and then 30 plus for Snorri Plus. And David, maybe you could say a little bit more about Snorri Plus, because that has a little bit different agenda.
Sure. I think the division is called the kids and the old folks. So, I was like, what was I? I was only 51 when I went, and that's not old. So it's a 2-week program for the Snorri Plus folks, and the first week is really spent similarly in a university classroom, learning Icelandic, learning economics, learning geology, Icelandic history from some really great professors mostly. And these are just little 1 hour modules. They're nothing heavy duty. And then also during that week, we are paired with somebody in Iceland for a half a day that had an occupation similar to what we had in the United States. So I had a government job dealing with child support enforcement. So I got paired with somebody that did that kind of work. It was much different than the kind of work I do because they've got a social system here that's much different. But it was similar enough that we could have a really good half day together. And then, of course, the last week is similar to the Snorri program, where they're out for a week on an adventure tour all the way around Iceland, often stopping here in Hofsos for a day at least. So yeah, it's a great program, and you don't have to be of Icelandic descent to participate in the Snorri Plus program. So it's open to anybody. I don't know what the cost is, but I think this year it might be close to $6,000 or $7,000 for 2 weeks, which isn't bad. Many meals are provided. All your accommodations are figured out. You've got a tour bus when you need it. Everything's kind of done for you when you get here. It's really great. Plus, being a participant in either of these programs allows you the opportunity to become an intern later.
Very true. Very true. Yay. Oh, well, we've got another couple of questions that have come in. Mallory, you said earlier that it's about 4.5 hours from Reykjavik to Hafsos. Do we know how much that is in miles, kilometers?
I feel like it's around 250 to 300 kilometers, somewhere in there.
Okay.
I'm an hours, I calculate everything in hours, not miles or kilometers, so I wouldn't be the one to ask. But from the airport, it's a 5+ hour drive because the airport's about 45 minutes, further out than Reykjavik. But if you're leaving from Reykjavik, you could make the drive, if you're not stopping and looking around, in 4 to 4.5 hours. You can take a whole day, of course, if you're looking around and stopping at all the sites on the way from Reykjavik to Hofsos.
Okay. And at the Emigration Center, can you give ancestry information to visitors?
Yeah, definitely. We have a whole library of, print resources and maps, and then of course we also use Icelandic roots. And so for those who aren't familiar with it, we can kind of introduce the Icelandic roots genealogy database to them, and maybe help them get started with a membership on that. And then we do have some people who have already connected to that before they come, and then we'll maybe help run them through it and show them some features they might not have been aware of if they're new to the database or something. But there's all sorts of things that we can show people when they come here. And a lot of them want help in locating family farms that might be in this particular region. So that's always nice to be able to point out a different family farm and maybe say like, oh, I don't know, you could try and knock on the door and see if anybody's home and ask them if it's okay to take some pictures around the farm or something.
So on average, how many people visit the center during the course of a year?
That's hard to say. I would say probably around 1,000 plus over the course of a year when we count all of the different tour buses and things that stop by. In the last year or so, we've had more cruise ship groups that will come in. Last summer, there was a few cruise ships. It was the Hurtigruten cruise ship line, which is amazingly fun to say. They were actually anchoring the boat right kind of outside of the harbor in Hofsos a few times last summer, and would bring their little like Zodiac boats back and forth from our harbor to their ship to bring their passengers in. So we had some of those groups come through in large numbers. This year we've had one cruise ship that landed in Söderkrókur, and they sent a bus full, a small group, to the museum from Söderkrókur, about 25 minutes south. Other than that, it's usually, small groups and families that come through. We've had a couple of family reunion groups, I guess, that have come through of Icelanders, where there was, a dozen or more that were gathered and chose to come as one of the activities for the weekend to the museum.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Back to the Snorris, the Snorri Programs. Is there any sort of financial aid opportunities that people can look into that would help them out with some of the costs?
I'll take that one as a member of the INLUS board. It's one of several organizations that give the Snorri, the kids, those under 30, help. In fact, I think two organizations that I know of have been giving regularly $1,000 per person. You have to ask for it, and you have to kind of make a commitment that you're going to pass it forward or give something back upon your return. And that can be something as simple as, just writing an article for their newsletter or doing a blog post. It's a cheap $1,000, not much is asked. The Snorri Plus people, I've yet to see scholarships go to them because it's kind of assumed they're, actively earning good money. So yeah, there's those scholarship opportunities that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So in Hofsos, can you, Mallory, maybe talk about the flag factory?
Yeah, so one of the other things that we have in the main exhibit museum building is the Icelandic flag factory. And so it's the only place in Iceland, at least that I am aware of, where handmade flags are, or they're made right there by a woman named Inga, who is a full-time employee of the flag factory. And so they make both like the standard rectangular flags and then also like a pennant shape flag. And it is the place where like the government will order their flags, and a lot of the fishing vessels and things like that in Iceland order their flags from this flag factory. And Valgeir and Gunnar who run the museum are also in charge of this flag factory. So it's really cool to have that there. And if you come to the museum, you can actually poke your head up into the factory. We say factory, but it's just I don't know, maybe a 100 200 square foot room with a bunch of sewing machines and then kind of a storage and a big cutting table for the fabric downstairs. So it's not like it's a massive factory. There were 3 women who worked there a few years ago, and now it's just Inga who's working there, and she's a champion. She does beautiful work and makes I don't know, several thousand flags each year.
I've been there, and I must say I have never seen anyone so quickly and so precisely. It's just almost an art to watch her work. It's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. We have we just lost David. Hopefully he'll come back. We have a comment as well from Julie, who's in the Edmonton area, I believe. The Edmonton Club, the Edmonton Icelandic Club, does sometimes support Snorri Plus participants. I believe you need to be likely a member of that club, but just an FYI, that's the first club or first scholarship I'm aware of that's been given out to Snorri Plus. So check around. There may be others that we aren't aware of. We also have a question from Stacy, who says that she will soon be in Reykjavik, but won't be traveling to Hofsos on this trip. She's asking, how can I garner ancestry information from the Reykjavik area? And is there anything similar to Hofsos located there?
There's not a genealogy facility that I know of that's available to the public there. I would recommend sending us an email here. You can send it to mallory@hofsos.is with some of your family information on there and the questions that you have, and I'm happy to look into that. David and Maddy and I can do a little bit of research and send some stuff back to you. And then I also highly recommend looking into the Icelandic roots genealogy database, because a lot of that is available probably already in the database, and it's just a matter of you accessing it. There might be, you know, new generations that need to be updated if that hasn't been done by someone else in your family. But that's a fabulous resource that for a very reasonable membership fee, you can access from wherever you are.
And I'll just add a little bit to that. The one great thing about Icelandic Roots is behind the scene, there are 40 people at least that are volunteer genealogists that are trained and experienced in vetting and going through Icelandic records that are available online now. The Icelandic Archives is in Reykjavik, and you can go in there and ask for this or that document, but it's going to be in Icelandic. We can get many of those records imaged, but you kind of have to know Icelandic to get through the database to get at them. So yeah, take advantage of the people that are behind the scenes at Icelandic Roots. It's part of your membership fee.
And there is a link to Icelandic Roots on the INLUS website as well. So that can get you there quite quickly. All right. So Maddy and David, you've been there for a little over a month now, 6 weeks, something like that. What has this experience meant to you so far? And how do you think it's affected you, or how has this changed you? So Maddy, why don't you go first?
I think it's just affected me to try and lay back from my normal day-to-day life. I know we can all get caught up in the busyness, especially in big cities where there's so much to do and so much like around you, just even with family and friends, just the busyness and expectations. So I think it's been a great experience just to be kind of in a more laid back area with surrounded by nature and go on some long walks and just be able to think about life and then deep dive into some of the Icelandic Roots database, because I hadn't before. So I've gotten a chance to go through and see some of my ancestral information. So that's been really cool. I even got to go to some family farms last week because they were all close to Hofsos. So that's been really impactful, just seeing where my family comes from and just seeing the places where my roots are actually from. And instead of just having this lofty idea of they come from Iceland, it's a big place. So I get to actually see the areas where they come from. So that's been really cool.
David, same question.
Yeah, Maddy uses the word laid back a couple of times, and I love that. But for me, the right word would be laid out. Unfortunately, I've been here 6 or 7 weeks, and after week 1, I got sciatic nerve pain. And I was in so much pain that I was laid out on the bed for 2 solid days. And I don't say this story to be a pity party, but it was amazing to me, the people that rallied around me with pills, with hot pads, with ice packs, with lots of stuff that I just needed to kind of like get back on my feet. They even 3 weeks later, when I wasn't feeling all that great or kind of had a little relapse, without me asking me, they got me an appointment at the hospital in Söderkrókur. So I got to experience firsthand the great, amazing care that the Icelandic medical system provides. So the thing that's impacted me is just that perspective that even strangers that I hardly knew cared. That kind of sense of humanity and caring. And my roommate, Maddy, and Mallory, my boss at work, they were all really good about caring for me. And I think we can all do that for each other. And that's kind of maybe my lesson in the first 6 weeks. The next 6 weeks, since I'm feeling so good, I want to be out there walking with Maddy everywhere.
All right, all right. And Dave, you've had some really nice memories and nice interactions with family, distant cousins that have dropped by.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. One of my 4th cousins is a lady who's in her 80s in Reykjavik, and her daughter, Johanna, she and I have been corresponding since we met back in 2011 or 12. And lo and behold, she opens the door of the gift shop, and I greet her just like I would greet any other guest. Well, welcome, to the museum. What would you like? Can I tell you about it? She says, you don't recognize who I am, do you? And the minute I said that, she said that I recognized who she was. And she and her husband had come 60 miles out of their way on their way back home to Reykjavik to come just stop by and see me. And we talked for 90 minutes. It was so great. Wonderful. So meeting family, this whole cousins across the ocean concept, it's real. It's meaningful. It's possible to find cousins here if you haven't found any yet.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And Mallory, the summer is half over up there. We have a question about Eddie, who's sitting in your laps. What does Eddie do at the Emigration Center? What's his area of expertise?
If he had his way, he would be the official greeter of the Immigration Center. But when things are in full, function at the center, he's not really there very much. He stays home. In the winter time, he'll come with me to work sometimes in quieter days for an hour or two and lay in his bed by my desk. But no, he's we have to be aware that not everyone loves dogs as much as I do, and so he's sometimes home.
And so as we get into the second half of the summer, what are you most looking forward to while you're up there?
Me, well, let's see. I don't know, I just like to meet, especially the, Western Icelanders, people with Icelandic ancestry when they're coming in. I think that's fabulous. If they've got some kind of mystery ancestry issue, that's fun. We've had a couple people come in this year, both Icelandic and, Western Icelanders, saying, oh, I know this part of my family history, or I know a little bit about this guy early on, but I don't necessarily know, what happened to him or whatever. And so, I don't know, David and I have been going through a lot of these situations, and David is especially good at finding records that are well buried and kind of in secret locations on the internet. So it's been great to learn actually some more places to look and be able to answer some of these mystery genealogy situations.
Okay, so what in your time at Hofsos, what have you found surprising so far?
I think it's surprising how emotional the genealogy piece can be for people, even when it's many generations back. I've had people come in and, share information with them that I found in books or databases or wherever, and they're in tears and I'm in tears. And there was one of the first summers that I was here, it wasn't the internship year, it might have been in 2017. There was a woman who came in and she had like a birth date and a name of her great grandmother who was from the South Coast and had immigrated to Canada, but she didn't know anything about this person, and obviously it was a person she'd never met. And so we were able to find that she was from a family of saddle makers in the South Coast, and we had, the names of the farm by the time that she was ready to leave and stuff. And so she was sitting there being able to puzzle piece together who this person was as a human living a real life, not just, a great grandmother's name on a family tree. And so I think that continues to both surprise and delight me, is how really like deep feeling that can be for people, even though it happened 100 or 150 years ago. I think that's great.
Yeah, no, marvelous. So David, I'm going to give this question to you. The Western Icelanders come to Hofsos and they're so interested in learning about their relatives and cousins and, great amas and things like that. Do you find, or have you had any experience in the perception of the Icelanders wanting to meet their Western relatives?
No, I've never seen that piece play out. But we do encourage them when they go to their family farms to introduce themselves to the people that are living on that farm today. I find that we might be seventh cousins. Our common connection to somebody in Iceland might be back into the 1600s. Well, that's kind of meaningless in a way. It's really rare for people today in North America to find anybody much closer than a third or a fourth cousin. Those are like gold mines to get that close. But the thing that you can share with a seventh or a 10th cousin is a love of place. Go back to that ancestor and find out where you have that place in common. And they might know the farm, and you could go visit the farm, and you can both kind of share that love of place. It's not just about love of people and connection with people, it's about connection with place.
Very nice, very nice. So, Maddy, what would you say, and David, I'll have you come on after this. What would you say to someone who's on the fence about applying for Snorri or Snorri Plus?
I'd say to just do it. It was a very life-changing experience for me. It just gave me the opportunity to connect more with my roots, and I think the most meaningful thing for Snorri for me was connecting with my cousins, even though they were a little bit distant. It's like David had said, you're connected by place, and they were able to show me around Iceland and kind of introduce me to the culture a little bit more. And I've kept the bond pretty strong between my homestay family that I stayed with, and visited one of my cousins during Christmas time because she's living in Copenhagen. So it shows that the bonds you make on this trip can really last a whole lifetime. So you really can't turn down that opportunity to meet different people and make those bonds.
I would say I would first want to know why it is that you're on the fence. And I think one of the reasons I was on the fence for a while is I'm kind of shy. I kind of like my downtime. I don't like to be in big groups where there's a lot of commotion. Luckily, with my Snorri Plus group of 2011, there were only 7 of us, and all 7 of us bonded wonderfully. But I went into Snorri requesting that I have my own room, not sharing it with somebody. So you've got an option to go less expensive and share a room, or you can ask for a private room. For me, I just needed that downtime space, and it worked great. The classes that you go to are really engaging and interesting, but you're not put on the spot. You're not graded. There's no competition as to who can raise their hand fastest and answer the question. It's just a fun learning experience. And the people you travel with really will become your friends for a long time.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I am participating in Snorri Plus this year, so I hope to have that same experience, David, that you've had. So what advice do you have for people who want to learn more about their Icelandic heritage? Whoever wants to answer that can answer it.
Dive in. I mean, there's so many resources available now, online, or, there's all sorts of books and things that have been written, fiction and nonfiction. I guess you have to determine what's what, but yeah, I think email us at the center or check in with Icelandic Roots. There's lots of different websites and information available, different newspaper records and church records and all sorts of different things.
The other thing I would say on top of that is who is still alive in your family that holds some of those stories. Yeah, they might not have been the immigrant ancestor. They may still even just be a grandson or granddaughter of that immigrant person. But what do they remember growing up that might have a shade of Icelandic culture? Did their family have a Christmas tradition that was kind of an Icelandic theme? Did they even get sung lullabies that were of Icelandic origin? There's some really famous lullabies that people carry for generations. So before you lose those connections, try to flesh those out in your own backyard.
Very good, very good. And we have one more question. If you have a question that's burning in your mind, please get it in now. We're down to our last question here. So as Snorri alumni interns, what will you miss most about Hofsos when you return to North America? Maddy, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for David, but I think like just the quietness, I'll definitely miss. It's really nice to just wake up every morning and see the ocean and just be surrounded by nature. And I remember the first night I was here, I thought the river was highway noise because that's what I'm used to. And I was like, wait, there's no highway. It's just the actual nature around here. So I'll miss getting lulled to sleep by all the nature sounds.
I would second everything Maddy said, just about the quiet and the river and everything. But, you know, Maddy, I'll miss you as a roommate. Mallory, I'll really miss you as a great boss. And Valgir and Guna, oh, they've just been such a pleasure to meet. We went up the road like 3 miles to a wonderful coffee shop and a new guest house. And Daniel and Stephen have become really nice friends. So, you know, we just meet some really good people, and I'll miss that a lot.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So to Diane, who just submitted a comment, I look forward to meeting you as well. And before we end today, are there any final comments from either or from any of you? Maddy, Mallory, David?
Come visit us in Hofsos.
I will. So I just want to say thank you to the three of you for joining us today. It's been really interesting and informational and fun to talk with you again. Before we go, I want to let you know that the INLUS's next set of our very popular Icelandic classes will be starting again in the fall, right, David?
That's right. Sometime in October, we'll begin another set of our 4 classes. We'll start advertising those in late August, and enrollment will probably begin in early September.
All right, great. All right. If you are interested, please keep tabs on our website. We'll have all the information out there about how to enroll into the classes. And also we'll have more webinars coming up, and we'll let you know what they are and when they are as they are scheduled. So thank you again, Hofsos team, for joining us today and for giving us your time and your enthusiasm and all the information. It's been great. And to all of our attendees who have joined today, thank you so much for being here and for the great questions. Bye-bye.